Hi there, my name is Tor Wormsley. I decided that I wanted to put this video together after a long time struggling with symptoms of long COVID. This is my story, and it's a story that's shared with many other people at the moment. Haven't seen anybody else do such a, I suppose, informative video around a certain condition, and I'm really hoping that this will help, that my journey, my story will help thousands of other people that are suffering with what I refer to today as the secret destroyer. So I had COVID-19 back in late October, early November, and at the onset there were symptoms of no smell and no taste. It's called anosmia. So I knew when I had a COVID test that it would come back positive. I'd eaten a whole dish full of hot jalapeno pickled peppers, and I didn't taste a thing. So I knew in my heart of hearts that COVID was on its way, and indeed it was. A positive test came back. So I probably spent around 2 weeks with no smell, no taste, like you would if you had the flu, the regular flu. I've had this on occasions before. And it's miserable. It's really miserable for me. I am a highly sensitive person. I teach mindfulness, so my awareness is very developed, highly developed. Sense of smell and taste is everything to me, from my perspective and from the perspective of cooking, buying food, feeding people. Such a massive part of my life. So here I was with no smell and no taste, and it's a little bit disorientating at first. So I recovered from COVID, and through November, December, there was still no taste or smell had returned, which was really disappointing, I'm not going to lie. I don't think it was so much distressing, but it was a bit miserable. It was a bit miserable. And then through January, I started to be able to sense like saltiness, sweetness, sourness. So if I had lemon squeezed in water, I could sense the sourness. If I had ice cream, which I have developed an absolute massive passion for, I could sense the sweetness. And salty vinegary crisps like Pringles and stuff, I could really sense. So this was how life was. Rather beige, actually. Really rather beige. And then I had my first COVID injection at the end of January. And about 4 or 5 days after that, I'd gone outside to a friend's house just to have a catch up. And they were smoking a cigarette and had a fire pit lit. And just suddenly, the world changed. The world changed suddenly. And I got this overbearing, overwhelming smell that I had never experienced before, ever experienced. It was sickly, it was pungent, and it was absolutely downright sickening. So I didn't say anything to anybody. Me and my partner left and we walked home. And I just thought, whoa, that was weird. That was really weird. I'd also had a beer and it tasted off. It was a new type of lager we were trying. So I just thought, it's just an off kind of weird sewer type of taste. Oh, well, I won't be drinking that again. So we went to bed and I woke up the following morning, and my other half and I drink coffee occasionally, decaf coffee for me. And I'd had my normal cup of tea, which I have first off, and then the second drink of the day is a lovely coffee. If I've been for a walk, have a lovely coffee. So I made a coffee, and again I was overwhelmed by the sickening stench of what I will now refer to as COVID smell and COVID taste. What does that smell or taste like? Because I've never experienced it, I really can't describe it to you. If you think of being sat in the back of a car with all of the windows up, with the heater system blowing, with people smoking, and also exhaust or diesel fumes being pumped into the car, then you might get an idea of the severity of this smell, distortion of smell and taste. So this is what then the coffee had done. And I really started to panic. I mean, really panic. So I was so distressed. And on Sunday, this had started on the Friday, on the Sunday, I spoke to my other half about it. I said, something's going on, something's really bad, something's really not right. So I decided to look on Facebook, thank goodness for Facebook, because what I noticed was there was a support group with 12,000 members, and it's called Parosmia. So anosmia is no smell and taste. Parosmia is distortion of smell and taste. So once I started to read the comments and the conversation through this support group, I began to realise that it wasn't just me. Thousands of other people were suffering with exactly the same symptoms. Exactly. At that point, it was very, very difficult, not only for me, but for the people on the support group, because nobody else understood. The only people that understood were the people on the support group. So what I know now, I didn't know back then, or I didn't realise. I knew, but I didn't realise it back then. So I gave the support group to my other half to read, because we'd been getting quite touchy. He was as distraught as I was, and things weren't great between us because of it. They were getting bored with me talking about it. My son, my family, other half were getting bored about the same conversation. But it was so disorientating. So miserable. Referring back to smell and taste being my everything, my joy. Highly sensitive person with really extrasensory perception and processing of smell and taste. It was very, very difficult. The support group understood. Nobody else did. So once my other half had read on Facebook the comments, he was absolutely astounded that A, this thing was real, and B, the depth of suffering that people are experiencing with it. So this is how life was. I was unable to cook because I have no sense of smell. So certain things like toast is horrific. Garlic, onions, meat, eggs, fruit. There are two different smells going on here. One is the COVID, which I've explained about the back of the car and the exhaust. The other one, smell and taste, for me and for many other people, are for things like peppers. And this becomes like a very high, over sickly sweet aftershave type smell or taste. So it's like going into a minefield. You don't know what's safe. You don't know what smells, what tastes are going to make you panic. So here we go. Our senses have been developed to keep us safe. When you lose any of your senses, you're immediately put into your threat and survival system. So without the sense of smell, I couldn't register whether we had gas leak, whether the cooking toast had turned into a fire. Also, you have no perception as to tastes to include in food. So food poisoning, whether something has gone rank in the fridge. You know, I could open the fridge with my high sensitivity and go, something's not quite right. If the cat had brought a mouse into the house and it had decomposed, it didn't take very long at all for me to sniff it out. My other half used to say, "You like living with a sniffer dog." Back the head would come and I could sniff it. That's gone. So now what I recognise is, from the moment that my smell and taste had disappeared and then become distorted, I was now trying to live within my threat system. I'm very, very proud to say that I teach mindfulness-based stress reduction, mindfulness-based compassionate living, and I have a dedicated mindfulness practice and have done for many, many years. Some of you may already recognise me as Tor from Mindful Moments UK. So here I am, this highly sensitive, fully aware human being suffering dreadfully. This support group has now grown from 12,000 members back in early February to over 27.5 members as it is at the moment. To varying degrees, we have all got the exact same onset of symptoms, changing of symptoms. I went to see a consultant specialist in London a couple of weeks ago, but I'll come to that in a minute. So after months of suffering in this way, my mood had become very, very low, very, very low. Some very distressing, dark thoughts, very distressing thoughts. Because not only are you suffering, some people may say, oh, it's only smell, it's only taste. But actually, one, as I've explained, the threat system and living in fear and panic, because there's a trigger that happens when you smell that smell. It's so disorientating, it's so weird, it's so new, it's so scary. Internally, you're starting to react to this. You can't help it. We're built for survival. Our beautiful brains are created for survival of the species. So we've got the smell and taste, but we've also got this massive internal physiological problem happening as well. So I was smell training with essential oils, and when nothing happened with that, I actually threw them in the bin not too long ago. We were doing some tips that somebody had offered as a chiropractor on a website. You place your hand on your heart and then you get somebody to flick various bits of your head. That didn't work, so we'd ceased to do that. So I began the process of really needing to get things right. Through my mindfulness practice, I did realise that I was reacting really strongly to the sense of smell and taste. And I just wondered if I could bring a little bit of acceptance to the smell and taste. So this was step one for people that are suffering with parosmia, anosmia. Let's really focus on parosmia though, because this is the silent destroyer. My first step towards help is to engage in eating with other people in the first instance and recognise the wish to flee from that food, from that smell or the drink. That's our instinct, to keep us safe. We want to get away, we want to flee from that substance. So in the first step, my heartfelt advice would be to notice this instinct, this reaction, and just see if you can bring yourself into a different relationship. So maybe even just a softening in the body, noticing the body's gone tight, just softening the body. Here is a disgusting smell. Here is a disgusting taste. But can I bring myself to be in a slightly different relationship to it? Can I eat and drink even with the presence of that smell? We have two choices. We eat, drink and stay alive. We don't eat, we don't drink, and we don't survive. So it is a matter of life or death, and that's why this video, this podcast, is so important. So that changed a little bit for me. That changed a little bit of softening towards, oh, okay, so here I am with the family about to eat food. From a carer's perspective, I've now begged my family to be my smell and taste and not to get cross with me, not to get impatient with me. But if I can smell something that smells so dreadful, I will say to them, what is that smell? I know I'm smelling something. So say, for instance, we're walking around our beautiful estate where we live. People may be barbecuing, cooking roast dinners, having a fire, having a coffee, whatever it is. It all smells of COVID. So I will say, there's that smell. What is it? Can you tell me? And my son might say, oh yeah, it's barbecue. Ah, so it's barbecue. So like somebody that loses hearing, that loses sight, they have aids, and we too need aids to help us survive this. We can survive this silent destroyer. Ask for help. Ask for support. Because it's exhausting. If we're living in our threat system, it's exhausting for us. So we need help in the house as well. Can somebody else take on some of the responsibility to do the shopping? Because I love shopping for food, and I really went off it for quite a long time. So then I sought out some help from the doctor, and I'm now under the doctor's surgery, local doctor for long COVID. So we're doing some tests on fatigue levels and oxygen levels and things like that. I'm also taking vitamin D, I'm taking zinc and vitamin C. So I did some research, and there is a university hospital in London that are very interested in parosmia for long COVID and smell and taste testing. So at my lowest, just under about 3 weeks ago, I was really at my wit's end. I hadn't shed one tear at this point. I was using my mindfulness practice. I was still sleeping amazingly well, thanks to mindfulness practice. I was still eating to a variable degree, but I also decided to get some protein shakes as well. So I knew that regardless of what I didn't or wasn't able to eat through the day, I could have a protein shake, so I was getting some kind of nutrition. And I would wholeheartedly, highly recommend that. A good quality protein shake with as little additives and shit that you can find. A pure, good protein shake. Don't go cheap, because you'll find they've got a nasty kind of, this high sweet kind of taste to them. So go good quality. And I can recommend that separately, because I think it breaches all sorts of things if I promote it on here. So I made an appointment, and I was offered a cancellation appointment up in London. I was so delighted at the ENT department. As I was leaving the house that day, I cried and cried and cried for the first time since this had all begun, because I finally realised it was a huge problem. For me to have had the darkest thoughts I'd had, it was a huge problem. So lacking in energy, because I'm not eating the way that I'd normally eat. A real kind of fun thing, I suppose, is I've hardly ever eaten ice cream in my life, but every single night I just take a few scoops of ice cream. I don't know if it's the sweetness or the cooling sensation, but ice cream has become my treat. I get very excited about it. So here we go. I'm heading off to London in absolute floods of tears. Some relief, I think, as well, because I was finally going to go and see somebody. And I arrived in London and made it to the hospital, made it into the testing room, and looked at all of these hundreds of marker pen looking things. And they asked me to close my eyes, and I just basically, test one was to sniff whether any of these marker pens had any smell at all. That was the first test. The second test was to smell marker pens and then differentiate. Two were the same and one was different. Which were they? And the third test was to look at a screen that had pictures of different things on, so varying from cigarettes, fish, shoes, household products. Even household products have this COVID smell. So here is a screen with all these different products on, and then they waft a pen under your nose and you have to say, oh yeah, that identifies as that product. Halfway through the blind smell test, I just had to stop and take time out and broke down again, because it really hit home just how severe this is. Here I am at a university hospital in London with absolutely no idea as to what I'm smelling. No idea. It's disorientating. It's isolating. Because even the people testing had never experienced it. So how can anybody, apart from the other people suffering parosmia, understand what this is truly like? So I regained composure and off we set again. And to my delight, I did smell two smells that day. Looking at the screen, I smelt fish, which was fish with no COVID tinge to it. And I smelt leather shoes with no COVID tinge. So that was like, wow, at least I smelt something. So I left the hospital with a very strong prescription for a dose of steroids to try, because that can reduce the inflammation, apparently, giving hope. I left with the instruction to install a gas detector, smoke detector. We've got the smoke detector. I'm not sure we've installed a gas detector. For safety. Because then it had been identified as very, very real, I also felt like I had the real opportunity to discuss it with people. I didn't need to feel like a bore or like, oh, here she goes, going on again about it. Really asking for support from the family. You know, if we go out to eat or we go around for food at somebody's house, I can say to my family, can I smell that please? And if it smells like COVID, I don't bother. If it doesn't smell like COVID, then I can try it myself. The other thing I've done is to really simplify my own diet. So I have a protein shake every day, so I know that I'm getting the goodness. I take my vitamins every day. I'll still cook for the family, although we've never touched a garlic and onions in the time that I've had this. But I've just accepted that unsmoked turkey rashers have very, very, very little taste and very little COVID taste or smell. So they're pretty safe. Mushrooms cooked in butter are safe. Avocado is pretty horrible, but I'm losing my hair. I'm not losing it from the root. My hair is breaking off with a lack of goodness. So I just suffer, I suppose, the half for an avocado. Let's just eat it. Not because it tastes good, because I know it's doing me good. Really applying this mindful eating approach to it. So lean turkey rashers, mushrooms and eggs scrambled with cheese are acceptable. So that's a good breakfast or a good lunch. So I alternate shake, lunch in those different forms. Now, bearing in mind I was vegetarian before I had COVID, I know that I am in survival. I'm in my threat system, which is becoming less. Move on to that in a second. So I've had to make peace, and I've really had to come to terms with the fact that I am eating meat again. Because this is a matter of my survival, and I have to do it. So I've settled on dinner, which is thin steak. If anything gets slightly overcooked, it has the COVID tinge to it. So just slightly cooked thin steak with some smashed new potatoes. I was just eating mash, but I've got a beautiful friend who's a nutrition specialist. She's starting to guide me on things that we can swap and change. And one of the things is simply swapping sweet potato with no skin on and new potato with no skin on, keeping the skins on, mashing them down and eating those. With a very plain salad, because I can't do onions, I can't do tomatoes, cucumbers, hit and miss. So I really, bag a salad with balsamic and olive oil that my beautiful nephew's girlfriend made for dinner one night. Great. The balsamic vinegar really hits the taste buds. So if I eat that every single dinner until this parosmia eventually goes and passes, then so be it. So I've found an amount of food that doesn't feel scary. I don't feel panicked when I'm approaching it. So what I'm concerned about, and the big reason for this, is that I'm starting to make my peace with it. But I read some of the posts on our Facebook support group, and I see that people are starving themselves to death. I read that people are breaking down. Some people are carrying beautiful new lives. Some of these people are pregnant. Firstly, I urge every single one of you that are suffering with parosmia to eat and drink. You have to eat and drink to stay alive. And if you want some help and support, I'm more than willing to set up a course just for people suffering parosmia. Please reach out to me. So this is really, really important. You have to eat and drink. Approaching it with a sense of, this is really bad, but I need to do it. Softening the body and eating and drinking anyway. My second plea is to the people that live and care for people with parosmia. You have to begin to understand. You have to begin to read the support group messages. You have to understand they're not mad. They're not attention seeking. They're not making it up. It's a desperate situation, and it's our war against this silent destroyer. We have got each other, thank goodness, but we really need the support of our families and friends to understand this as well. It's isolating. It's frightening. So, the way forward. The way forward is to get yourself some professional help. Is to continue with smell training. I've been instructed to now buy some more oils, lemon, clove, rose and eucalyptus. Smell train twice a day, every day for 4 months. Now I'm adding to this something slightly different. As a mindfulness practitioner, I'm also adding some imagery to this. So my supervisor came up with this really great concept of mind training. The way I've practiced mindfulness all these years, I now sleep beautifully through the night. That's because there's changes gone on in these neural pathways. So excitingly and interestingly, I'm really trying to train my brain to come back to a sense of relationship with smell and taste, which is normal. So when I smell lemon, I'm not only smelling the scent in front of me, I'm imagining fresh lemons being squeezed. I'm imagining the taste of lemon curd. I'm imagining the taste of lemon meringue pie. And I'm sniffing. When I'm sniffing the rose, I'm imagining walking through the most beautiful rose garden with the freshest scent of beautiful true English rose. And I'm leaving it just at those two with imagining at the moment. Then I move on to eucalyptus, and then I move on to clove. So let's wait and see what happens with the smell training. So this started off a long time ago. There's a possibility that things will change eventually. It's the olfactory nerve that's been damaged, which is somewhere between the sinuses and the brain. I'm going to get some MRI scans done on it in the next couple of months. I'm booked in for a follow-up at this wonderful university hospital in 6 months. So there's some real practical things that can be done. The nerve may repair. Nerves, as many of us know or didn't know or may know now, that nerves take a long time to heal and repair. So this could be years. It could be months. It could be days. There are certain people on our Facebook group that occasionally pop on and say, Guys, I'm out of here. This is a Facebook group from all over the world. Guys, I'm out of here. I cooked garlic today and I smelt it as garlic, not as COVID. But we never know, and uncertainty is very, very difficult to live with. Very, very difficult to live with. So firstly, I urge you to make peace and to stop beating yourself up. Let's really start to develop self-care and self-compassion. Mindfulness is so, so helpful. The support from your doctor, perhaps maybe you need GP's help here and support. Maybe you do. You definitely need the help and support of friends and family. Friends and family, it's up to you to really get your loved ones through this. On the Facebook group, somebody said they set out for a walk with their family the other day and they collapsed on the base of the mountain. They hadn't even made it up a fraction of the walk, and they collapsed due to malnutrition. I wash my hair 2-3 times a week, and every time I do, there is a massive circle of hair that's broken off in my hand. When I change my pillow is covered in hair that's broken off. Can't grow my nails at the moment. My skin is dry. I get the pasta scoop out to scratch my back when my skin is so dry. Have skin conditions. But I've started to engage my soothing system. So we have our threat survival system. Mindfulness-based, compassionate living helps us to recognise and engage our own soothing system. And we can simply do this by sitting still and quiet, bringing about mindful awareness, feet on the ground, body in contact with the chair, noticing the amount of tension which is in the body, and there's probably a lot right now. Mindful awareness is the first step. And if you can, if it's possible, start to notice the breath. The gentle flow of in-breath. The gentle flow of out-breath. If it helps, you can place a hand on the body to really become aware of this flow of breath. And if this starts to feel okay, then you can really start to settle and allow a soothing, breathing rhythm to emerge. The complete antidote to the threat system is to engage your soothing system. Mindful awareness is the first step. Self-compassion, soothing is the second step. And I could sit here for a very, very, very long time, but I'm not going to. So my website is www.mindfulmomentsuk. All of my contact details are on there, even if it's just for a friendly chat. I really hope that this video, this podcast, has been hugely helpful in so many ways to so many people. I've definitely turned a corner, and I believe I have more positive days than bad days now. And I also believe that if this was my life forever, I could cope with it. Take care.